Hey everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer for NC State on SI, Tucker Sennett, here to talk about the Week 3 matchup for the Wolfpack. We've moved on from that 2-0 start with that 35-31 victory over the Virginia Cavaliers on Saturday. Great performance by the offense, lots to work on for the Wolfpack defense, and they will try to attack that on a short week. The Wolfpack will travel to Winston-Salem to face Wake Forest in their first ACC matchup of the season. Obviously, that Virginia game was between ACC opponents, but it was not an ACC matchup on the standings. The schools agreed to it as sort of not an exhibition, but a sort of non-conference conference game. It's an odd situation, but it will not count for the ACC standings. So this is the official conference opener on a Thursday night. Sports Center will be in Winston-Salem for their Thursday night game. This is an ESPN game. Should be interesting. Two teams that have gotten off to different starts to start the season in a lot of ways, but are on a collision course as rivals in the area in the Carolina region. Wake Forest is kind of the odd man out of the triangle rivalry, so it'll be interesting to see how NC State looks on a short week. But just wanted to provide some early Wake Forest thoughts, give you an overview if you haven't watched any of their games yet or don't know much about the program. I figured it would be helpful for you to know. So they're 2-0 coming into this game. They've had two very different games in their first 2 weeks of the season. The Deacs beat Kennesaw State just 10-9 in week one. Not a pretty game at all. Their star running back, Damon Claiborne, only had 3 carries in the game, didn't play very much. So their offense really suffered. And we'll talk more about Claiborne when we start to talk about their two key offensive players, but not a great showing by the Deacons offense there. And Kennesaw State is a program that's only been in the FBS for just a season. So this is their second season playing competition like Wake Forest regularly. So not a very promising start. Kennesaw State lost to Indiana 56-9 in week two. Obviously, Indiana, much better opponent than Wake Forest, but that is a concerningly different variance in final score there. Whether you're unranked or ranked, you're still a power conference school. Their second week, they turned things up offensively, beat West Carolina 42-10. West Carolina also a pretty weak opponent. That's a team that NC State played in the past and has handled pretty easily. They're now 0-2. They lost in week one to Gardner Webb 52-45. So they clearly have some defensive deficiencies that allowed Wake Forest to get out and dominate. Going into the season, nobody really expected Wake to be very good. They were picked 16th out of 17 ACC teams in the preseason media poll, just ahead of Stanford. So, and Stanford's off to an 0-2 start, so they're pretty clearly the worst team in the ACC. This is the first year under Jake Dickert, who formerly coached Washington State. He's come over, taken over the program after longtime head coach Dave Clawson decided to resign. He still has sort of a not a general manager role, but a senior advisory role, I believe is what they call it. So he's around the building, sort of helping out with the program still, but not the head coach, obviously. That means that the mesh point, Dave Clawson, RPO heavy offense that you've seen the last few years is gone. That system and scheme has been a thorn in the side of many ACC schools over the past few years as Clawson sort of clawed his way back to prominence at Wake Forest. He led the program to some impressive years in his time there, but that offense is no more. The Dickert has moved a different direction and brought in some of his new, or a lot of different new players to sort of fit what he wants to do. QB1 as of now is Robbie Ashford. He's a journeyman. He started at Auburn, played there for 2 seasons, played with South Carolina, lost the job to Lenore Sellers last year. So he has landed in Wake Forest and earned the starting job there after sort of a long quarterback battle. They couldn't decide who they wanted to roll with. They've rolled with Ashford. It's been up and down. He's thrown for just one TD in his first 2 games. Hasn't looked great. He's got a 38.5 QBR, which is 99th in FBS. And he can be dangerous on the ground. He's rushed for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns in those first 2 games, and he was much better in the second game than he was in the first game. And part of that was because the Demon Deacons' best offensive player, senior running back Damon Claiborne, was not really in the picture in that first game. He was very much so in the picture against West Carolina. He rushed for 193 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 10 carries. So again, limited action, but an unbelievable performance in that limited action. I believe he finished with a over 80-yard carry for a touchdown in the game. So he dominated and marks a major concern for the NC State defense ahead of this game on Thursday after they were just thoroughly dominated by Virginia and Jamari Taylor on the ground in that 35-31 shootout. Virginia ran all over that defense. We don't know what the Wolfpack defense, the two performances have been so different. You allowed 30 rushing yards to East Carolina and were dominated by the pass. You allowed over 200 rushing yards to Virginia and were dominated on the ground, um, giving up 31 points. But the first half against ECU was just totally dominant on all facets, and then the second half was sort of a grind. The first half against Virginia was a disaster, missed tackles everywhere, couldn't stop the run. Um, then the second half, they held the Cavaliers to just 7 points. So we haven't found that mean yet for the Wolfpack defense and first year defensive coordinator DJ Elliott. So this will be a nice game against probably a maybe not a worse opponent than ECU, but certainly a worse opponent than Virginia. I'm pretty confident in that opinion, to figure some things out. The Wake Forest defense has allowed 19 points through 2 games. Pretty impressive number. However, as I said, Kennesaw State has scored 18 points through 2 games, and West Carolina did score 45, but against Gardner Webb. So that you have to take that with a grain of salt, and they obviously didn't play very well against Wake. They haven't seen anything like CJ Bailey yet. They haven't seen anything like Hollywood Smothers yet. They haven't seen anything like Justin Jolie yet. This is a totally different level for this Wake Forest defense. We'll see what they look like against another power conference opponent, but if Bailey and this running game continue to dominate like they did in week 2, it could be a pretty easy win for them. We'll see how that all shakes out, but that's just my early diagnosis. That's kind of the important stuff about Wake ahead of this game. I won't dive in too deep. We'll get Daniel Rios back on the podcast throughout the week to talk more about the specifics about the matchup, give you some more breakdowns and stuff. Sorry, we haven't had a lot of time to cover the Virginia loss together or the Virginia win together because we got this short week, got to turn things around pretty quickly and get ready for this matchup in Winston-Salem. The Thursday night game sort of messes everything up with our weekly coverage, but we will lock in for the Demon Deacons and get you ready for that game. As always, thanks for tuning in to the NC State Insider Podcast. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at Senate Tucker. You can also follow the website at Wolfpack on SI. You can also find our Facebook page, the NC State Wolfpack on SI Facebook page, for all of our stories. And if you want more of these episodes, hit up YouTube and subscribe to the sports videos on SI page. You can watch more podcast episodes, press conference coverage, and stuff like that every week, every day, for a bunch of different NFL teams and college teams where we have beat writers. Thanks again. Hope you have a wonderful day.